Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside Stalingrad Solitaire. This is a game designed by Gary Graber and published by Canvas Temple Publishing. This was a Kickstarter last year and it has arrived in, so I'm going to share a look inside with you guys right now. So let's take a look at the back of the box and see what this game is all about. Stalingrad Solitaire is a solitaire game simulating the last weeks of the encircled German 6th Army in the pocket German troops nicknamed the Cauldron, that formed in and to the west of the city of Stalingrad when Soviet troops broke through the Wehrmacht's front lines in December of 1942. You represent 6th Army's commander, General von Paulus. All actions of the Soviet commander Zhukov and subordinate units are strictly controlled by the game rules. As von Paulus, you must do your best to save the trapped army in the Cauldron while at the same time cooperating with the High Command to preserve the integrity of the entire southern front in Russia. Each turn you perform various types of actions within the pocket. Die rolls and rules determine the strategic situation and strategy employed by Army Group South outside the pocket, specifically in terms of the commitment levels of the Luftwaffe and General Hoth's relief force. Each turn represents 1 to 5 days, depending on the level of activity. The entire map board represents territory approximately 35 by 65 miles. German units typically represent divisions, while Soviet units are officially armies that were usually the rough equivalent of a German division. And you see here an example of the map and the counters. And the components, we get a rulebook, a 22 by 34 inch mounted game board, a 22 by 34 inch paper map, 1 sheet of 1 inch counters, 1 charts and table sheet, 1 deck of 25 playing cards, and 1 6-sided die. It is a low to medium complexity game, and the solitaire suitability is obviously high, and it is for ages 14 and up, and it plays in about 2 hours. So let's take a look inside and see what you get. All right, so we get our cards and a translucent D6, a bunch of baggies, our rule book, counter sheet, player aids, paper map, and the mounted map. So let's set up the map and take a closer look at the game. And here's a look at the mounted map that comes with the game. It's a very nicely done map and it lays flat right out of the box, which is fantastic. There's also a paper map if you choose to use that, but with the mounted map, I really don't see a need to. As you can tell, it is a point-to-point movement map, and to read the terrain, you just look at the key up here and it'll tell you what each of the symbols in the boxes mean. You have the Germans in the center, and they're surrounded by the Soviet units. The key areas on the map are little red boxes, like you see the Potomnik and the Gumrak airfield, as well as the city center, the Red October, and the tractor factories on the right-hand side. Then you have the Hoth entry points down here at the bottom, A, B, and C, the game turn track, the Luftwaffe commitment, relief force commitment, and the weather track, as well as the Hoth relief force down here. On the bottom left, you have the sequence of play, so you can easily reference that during the game. Strategic phase, German phase, Soviet phase, and then the evaluation phase. Those are the phases of the game. Now we'll take a look at the player aid that comes with the game, and as you expect with any solitaire game, it's very procedural, and there are plenty of tables to go through. Here we have the Luftwaffe relief force commitments table, airlift table, upkeep, German attack, and the appeal table. And on the back, we have the relief force, Soviet attack, and strategic situation tables. And we'll take a look at a couple of the event cards that you'll be drawing multiple times per game turn. The first thing you're going to look at is the top. On the first draw of the game, you'll see what the event is. On the left-hand side, it says this turn no effect equals retreat, and advance equals no effect. On the right-hand side, we see no airlift roll this turn. Beneath that, you'll have the weather. It'll tell you whether it's going to be fair, poor, or will stay the same. Beneath that, we have the offensive number, +2 on the left and +1 on the right. That will move the final offensive number up or down, and when it hits 8, that launches the final offensive for the Soviets. On the turn that it hits 8, all units that are attacking will also have an immediate follow-up attack regardless of the initial result of the first attack. And also, all German-controlled areas adjacent to Soviet-occupied areas are attacked in the Soviet phase each turn for the rest of the game, and that ties into the attacks, which is below that. On the left-hand side, it says any, and on the right-hand side, it says odd. That determines what units will attack for the Soviets. Where it says any unit will attack. On the right-hand side, it says odd. Only odd-numbered areas will attack for the Soviets. So you can see not every unit will attack every turn. And on the bottom, we have a random number, which is used for the Germans when launching an attack. Now we'll take a look at the counter sheets that come with the game. We have the Germans at the top in the bluish gray, and below that in the dark orange are the Soviet units. We'll also have different administrative counters that you'll be using to track different states throughout the game. Now we'll take a look at the rules. This is a 15-page full-color rulebook. The rules themselves are only 6 pages long. The rest of the book is supporting text, as well as some variants for play. We start off with the introduction, game components, the game scale, and then the basic concepts on the front page. And on the inside, we get to the sequence of play. And like I said before, it's a solitaire game, as most solitaire games are. They tend to be very procedural, and this is definitely that type of game. Strategic phase, it'll list out all the steps for the strategic phase. Remember, I was talking about drawing those cards. It'll tell you what to draw and how to apply the information on the cards. Then we get to the German phase, all the steps in the German phase, and then the Soviet phase and all of its steps. And then we get to the evaluation phase, the victory, and then the historical scenario there on page 6. Then we have a sample turn on page 7, and that'll carry over till page 8, where we have Stalingrad, the Endgame, which is an article by Gary Graber, the designer of the game, some game design notes, and some basic strategies. And then we get to the optional rules here on page 11. And it'll give you some ways of changing the game up. If you get tired of playing the base game, you can change things up and see if you can have a different outcome and have a little bit more fun. Then we have the same tables that we have on the Playrate here in the book. And then we're at the back of the rule book. And that is a look at everything you get inside of Stalingrad Solitaire. This is a game designed by Gary Graber and published by Canvas Temple Publishing. Stalingrad, it's a solitaire game. I said, hey, I'm going to grab it, and I did on Kickstarter. I didn't really look too deeply at the game. I just thought, hey, this is kind of neat. It's point to point. It's solo. Let's get it. I just backed it, forgot about it. It came in. Then talking to Bruce Garrick during the SD HistCon, he pointed out some things to me. Number one, that it was a reprint of Der Kessel, which was a mess back in 1996. Had a lot of errata because there were a lot of gaping holes in the rules, and that was the only way to make it playable. I wasn't aware of that, so it was pretty educational. Then he talked about his review, which I read, and he brings up a lot of good points about the game itself and the production quality. I'm going to point out a couple things that I haven't talked about yet that to me are just purely sloppy. It says Solitaire Stalingrad. It says Solitaire Stalingrad on the rules. On the box cover, it says Stalingrad Solitaire. Can someone make up their mind as to what the name of this game is? It was originally Der Kessel. It says Stalingrad Solitaire. Here it says Solitaire Stalingrad. It says Solitaire Stalingrad on the rule book. It sounds a little harsh, but when you're doing a reprint of a game, make sure that you have incorporated all of the errata, and then you make sure that the name and all these little simple things are straight across the board. You've got cards now. Initially, there were counters. The inside of this page is something else that I thought was another little sloppy thing. It says here, right here at the strategic phase, it says draw a card from the cup. Who's going to put a card in a cup? That was because, like I said, these were originally counters. It was a chit draw. It's little things like that that add up. And Bruce pointed those out to me. I looked at them myself and I was like, he's right. This is just, sloppy. And Canvas Temple Publishing really should have done a better job with this. Now, I'm going to give this game an honest run and see if it's a good game or not, but my initial impression is not a good one because this is just sloppy production quality. Really simple, small things, but first impressions are everlasting. If you see something like that, it kind of sticks in your craw, and it can also taint your view when you play the game. People may disagree with me and say, hey, Mo, you're wrong there, but if you're honest with yourself, I think everybody has that sort of sensibility when they look at a game and kind of get a negative opinion of it at first glance. Not saying that the game sucks or anything like that. I have to play it before I do. And I want it to be good because it's Stalingrad. It's solitaire. I want to be able to play this game. But little things like that irk me, and that's something where these publishers really need to clean up their act when it comes to doing reprints. Most reprints are really good, but something like that is pretty obvious and should have been done better. Not even going to mention how it says Der Kessel for the design notes. It starts off with that was pointed out online instead of saying Stalingrad Solitaire or Solitaire Stalingrad, whichever name you want to use. But that's fine if they're just reprinting his notes. that's fine. That doesn't bother me. But to have these things on the game itself and on the cover and then draw a card from the cup, things like that, that's just sloppy, and that means that the game was not proofed 100%, so now I'm wondering if there are any rules issues. Enough of the rant here. I'm kind of going on a little bit, but I just wanted to point those things out to you guys because that's what I do with these videos, to make sure that you guys are aware of all these things as much as you can be. But I am looking forward to getting this one on the table and giving it a shot because it's a solo game. It's set in Stalingrad, and I'm hoping it's going to be a fun one because it is something I'd like to play multiple times. Well, I hope that helps you guys out if you've been curious about this one. If you have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.